Hey, Coach. So glad you found the video. Couple things. First of all, make sure you subscribe and like. Second thing, go over and check out teachhoops.com for coaches who want to get better. Let me show you how to put a roadmap and become a nationally ranked coach. I've done it for 30 plus years. Let me help you do that over at teachhoops.com. Let's head off to the video.
Hey everybody. Coach Wheeler has hijacked my podcast, and I'm probably fishing, and my YouTube channel to kind of share with you guys some things about the Princeton offense. I think he's one of the best teachers out there. And he's going to teach how the Princeton is great for underdogs, can be run by anybody. And this upcoming week, he's got a free 3-day online coaching event on the Princeton offense, PrincetonOffenseMasterclass.com, PrincetonOffenseMasterclass.com. I'll put it down below. And he's got some great things he's going to share with you. So listen up and have a great day.
Coach, welcome. This is episode 2 of the Coach Unplugged podcast takeover. My name is Coach Wheeler, stepping in here, hacking Coach Collins' podcast. I always had to do that impersonation the best I can because you can't compete with the guy. You can't compete with the radio voice that he has. It's a natural talent. Again, that's talent. My man's got talent. I do not have that, so I've got to make up for it in other ways. And that's the topic that we're talking about in this little 3-part series is what do you do when you are the less talented team? How do you win? How do you even compete? How do you even get on the same court and expect to have any kind of positive results when you are not the most talented team or the most talented player, if you're looking at this from an individual standpoint, in basketball, out of basketball? And I even look at that internally as a coach. Like I said, I can't speak. I don't have the charisma or I don't have the experience of Coach Collins. So how can I get up here and even get anyone's attention when there's the topic that I want to talk about when it comes to basketball and coaching? So there's always this balance of knowing who I am, and then what do I have to do to be successful? And I just picked up the book. I've never read this book straight through. I've always read quotes. We've always read quotes. I didn't bring it up in the first podcast. That's kind of my bad, but I'm going to bring it up now. Is Sun Tzu, all right, The Art of War. In that book, he quotes, "A victorious army first wins, then seeks battle." And that is right on to the topic of the conversation that we're trying to have here. When we're either building up your program or preparing for your season. And what that quote means is before we even get to the X's and O's, because again, the offense and the defense, the X's and O's, that's the shiny object that coaches will chase after first. And again, the way that I was brought up as a young coach, it was like, hey, you need to look at the players you have, and then you can't run a certain offense if you don't have certain types of players. And then the more and more I coach, the more experience I get, I'm like, that's wrong. That's not even close to correct, because you can take any offense, any X's and O's, and you can make the adjustments to fit your personnel. But it's not even that. It's not even fitting your personnel to the offense, right? It's fitting your personnel to the strategy and then putting in the offense that's going to execute that strategy. And that's what we're really trying to get at in this episode 2 is now in the first episode we talked about that competitive evaluation. Who are we? What are our strengths, weaknesses? Who are we competing against? What are their strengths and weaknesses? All right. And on our schedule, who are we trying to beat? Are we trying to beat the team who we are clearly better than? Are we trying to beat the team? Are we trying to prepare to beat the team that is similar in talent than we are? Or are we trying to prepare and beat the team that is better than us, superior than us, more talent, more skill, more experience, right? More experienced coach, right? Who are we preparing to beat? And when I read that Sun Tzu quote the other day, and I'm like, okay, I've got to go on this. I went on Amazon, I bought the book, but a victorious army first wins, then seeks battle. And that comes down to the general of the army, the leader of the army, all right, the head coach. We have to, before we even step on the court with our players, we have to come up with that winning strategy first. Okay. Now there is a big difference between strategy and tactics, because the strategy is today, in the second episode. Tactics we're going to talk about tomorrow or in the next in episode 3, and that is the tactical planning. That is the X's and O's. That's the offense. All right, but before we just run out on the battlefield, we need to know the strategy first. We need to know the plan of attack. We need to know the overall way that we're going to compete, the overall style, the overall tempo that we're going to play before we get on the court with this team. And we may have a scout on them, we may not. If we know that this team is more talented than us because we went and watched them play, we got film on them, and man, they run up and down, they average 75, 80 points a game, and we don't want to get up in that up and down style with them. Now, I'll even take it back a step further. Before we even have our first practice, if I have general knowledge of the entire league or all of the teams on my schedule, because maybe you've coached there for a few years, or maybe you just got the job, and you go back to the previous coach or a previous assistant, or someone say, hey, who are all these teams in this league and how do they play? We have to find that out before we even prepare for our season. Not even just preparing for that one team, but before we prepare for our season. We need to know the best teams on our schedule and how they play. All right, we don't need to know all the nitty-gritty details about the individual players, but hey, are they more talented than we are? Are they more skilled or less skilled than we are? Are they more experienced or less experienced? Where are the strengths and weaknesses? All right, and if the best teams, and the easiest, most obvious example is the best teams on your schedule want to run and play fast. That's the way the whole game's trending today anyway. And even the teams that are less skilled are like, we want to run, the players want to run fast. They want to play, they want to run, they want to get up, they want to run, they want a high-scoring game. Everyone wants that. That's the most fun thing to watch, right? But that's not always the reality of the situation, right? In my mind, I want to win. And I know when I talk to Coach Collins, it's winning is the most important thing. And before I go into battle, if I'm first seeking to, if I'm trying to win first before we even step on the battlefield, before we even step on the court, I have to solidify my strategy, my game plan, right? My season plan, right? And this is what we're trying to get down to. It's not the X's and O's, but this is the overall style of play. So if the best program, or maybe even the best 3 or 4 teams that are more talented than you are, if they are all up-tempo teams, if they're all pressing teams, if they're all dribble drive teams, if they're all high ball screen teams, if they're all spread out teams, spread and drive, kick, ball screen, and if they're all attack-minded, right, and they're more talented and they're of decent skill, if I go try to play that same style of play, and if I try to, if their strategy is play fast, attack, and if I have less talent, less skill, and I go try to play fast and attack, right, advantage them. Right, there is a gap there. And if I try to play the same style that they play, hey, the truth is sometimes, and this is where self-awareness comes in, is we have to know our strengths and weaknesses. We have to know theirs. That gap is too big to overcome if we're going to play the same style, because all things equal, talent wins. Right? If you go back to at Sun Tzu, and they're talking about war. They're talking about winning wars. And a lot of the time, and I think we all know this, the biggest armies aren't always the ones that win. The strongest armies are not always the ones that win. All right? You have to take into account for, hey, maybe they're more athletic, more talented. Maybe they got more natural talent. But hey, we're pretty skilled. And while we can't get up and down the court in a track race with them, maybe we can slow them down to maybe our skill can start to chip away into that talent. But if we are more skilled and they're more talented and they're playing fast and we try to play fast, again, are we skilled enough to play faster than them? And that's the scale that we got to tip. That's the scale that we got to weigh. So when I am approaching a season and I'm looking at the best teams on our schedule, that's my goal. I want to beat the best teams, or I want to prepare to beat the best teams. And I want to implement a strategy that's going to get us competitive in that game. And if we can get the game within 6, 7, 8 points with 4 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, anything can happen. We can get their players in foul trouble. We can hit a shot that we normally might not expect to hit. We might get fouled, get a couple free throws. They might get flushed or turn the basketball over. We get a 1-point lead with 45 seconds to go. Anything can happen. And here we are about to upset a team that is a 15-point, 20-point favorite. Right? That happens. But that only happens when we as an underdog with less talent, maybe less skill, maybe less experience, maybe a combination of there's always a skill. It's always different for everybody. That's why you have to do the evaluation on your situation and have the awareness of, hey, this is reality here. But if you come in with a superior strategy, and then this is coming. So again, I'm a Princeton offense coach, and I take the Princeton offense and I mold it to the strategy that I want to execute. If I want to play fast, I'll run my Princeton fast. If I want to play slow, I'll run my Princeton slow. All right. And there's a lot of different strategies that you can do. And I'm going to talk about that more on episode 3. But but having the forethought of, hey, we have to play this way to win. I know everyone wants to play fast, and I want to play fast too. But if we want a shot at competing, and a lot of coaches say, hey, Jim Burson, who is an old school Princeton coach at Muskingum University here in Ohio, now he's been retired for quite some time now, but he told me one-on-one, he's like, hey, I came in, we're Muskingum, we're well outside Columbus, and my first 5 that I can recruit are as good as anyone's first 5. And I wanted to run and gun and play fast, and we did, and we lost. Because while my first 5 was as good as anyone's first 5, their next 5 were head and shoulders above us. And I wanted to keep my job. Now, a collegiate and a professional coach, they're about protecting their winning is the only way they can protect their job in most situations. High school coaches, we get a little more leniency because it's not always about winning or losing. It's about putting your players in a good atmosphere and promoting all the right things and keeping the locker room. But sometimes, that's going to be determined by if you're winning or losing. So, but the fact is, Coach told me, he's like, hey, if we don't change things up, we're going to lose. I'm going to lose my job. Or if we change stuff, if we're not even giving our players an opportunity to compete or an opportunity to win, right? They're going to be defeated. We're going to be defeated, and nothing's going to work out well. So we need to do the best thing that we can do. And Pete Carrill. So I was bringing up Jim Burson and bring up Pete Carrill. Pete Carrill's famous motto is the smart take from the strong. All right. It's the David versus the Goliath. All right. You put David in a fist fight with Goliath, he's going to lose. Right? But give him a slingshot and give him some distance and some space and let him fling that thing 150 miles an hour, and you can hit Goliath on the head with just a pebble. You can take down a bigger opponent. So what I talk to my Princeton offense coaches about is there are 2 ways to win. And I'll wrap up with this. There are 2 ways to win. You can have superior talent with a good enough strategy. All right? Or you can have a superior strategy with talent that's just good enough, with skill that's just good enough. But if your strategy is superior and you can execute that with talent who's just good enough, you can beat those teams with superior talent. All right. So just to kind of recap, all right, so after you evaluate your situation and the reality, who are our players? Who are we competing against? Who are we trying to beat? Now it's deciding on the strategy. There are 4 strategies. It is one is you can play faster than your opponent, you can play slower than your opponent, you can play more physical than your opponent, or you can play in more space than your opponent. And you can kind of have a little bit of combination of both of those. And all of those 4 strategies I'm going to be talking about in a free 3-day masterclass event that we're having coming up actually right away. Actually, by the time you're watching this, we might already be actively into it, or we might already be past it. And if that's the case, I still want you to go to PrincetonOffenseMasterclass.com. And I want you to go sign up. And if there are replays available, you can jump in there and check the replays out. And if the replays are not available, if we've closed it down by the time you've watched this, get on the email list. You'll get an automatic email from me. You can always email me, hey, Coach, when's the next one coming up? Or I'll put you on the wait list for the next event that we have, because we have lots of different events. But if you go to PrincetonOffenseMasterclass.com, I'm going to show you how to use the Princeton offense to execute all 4 of those strategies. How to play up tempo, how to play more deliberate and slow down basketball, how to play more physical with the Princeton offense, what that even means, and how to play in more space. And sometimes you want to play fast and in space. Sometimes you want to play slow and more compact and more physical game. All right? And it's going to depend on the players we have, the strategy we need to compete to beat the teams we want to compete with. Okay, so go to PrincetonOffenseMasterclass.com, sign up. I will see you in episode 3. We're going to be talking about tactical planning. right? So in the next episode tomorrow or whenever the release date is, by the time you're listening to this, is going to be the X's and O's. That's the sexy part. That's the glitter. That's the shiny object. That's where everyone starts. But that's, in my mind, that's the last thing that you want to do. You want to win first, go to battle second, and that's what we're doing. So go to PrincetonOffenseMasterclass.com. Coach, I'll see you guys on the next one.
Hey, Coach, so glad you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed it a lot. Actually, if you did, subscribe and like, and then go over and check out teachhoops.com for coaches who want to get better.